Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Chicago, in person and those at home. I am Ezrina Bradley. I'm your worship associate for today, and I'm also a board trustee. I am honored to lead you in worship this morning, along with Reverend David, Elizabeth McCreelis, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, and Adam O'Dell on the keys. First Unitarian Church has been a home for progressive religion in Chicago and beyond since 1836. The church sits on the western shore of Lake Michigan, south of the Chicago River. We honor the indigenous peoples for whom these are unceded ancestral homelands, as well as the diverse and vibrant indigenous American communities who make their home here today. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but the values we share and the mission to grow our souls and heal the world. Whether you just stepped into this church for the first time or for the 1,000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. No matter your race or who you love or how much money you do or don't have, you are welcome here. I'd like to take a moment to give a couple announcements for today. Just a reminder that our worship theme for this month is renewal. And thinking about that going forward, thinking about the fellowship hour after. We have fellowship hour, coffee, snacks, conversations in Christmore Parlor, up the stairs and down the hall. Okay, and another announcement, our postcard writing advocacy for the social justice team in Hull Chapel. A proposed bill regarding requiring Illinois public pension funds to divest from fossil fuels will come before the Illinois legislation in the next session. If you'd like to support this bill, you can sign a postcard to Senator Robert Peters expressing your support. Postcards will be available on the tables at coffee hour and also at the tables with membership materials at the back of the church. It is good to be together today. Please join me in reading our covenant. I'd first like to invite Bobby Campbell forward. Yes.
So today is the 1-year memorial anniversary of the passing of the Reverend Dr. Finley Campbell. So in the spirit of love and memory and honor, we have Bobby Campbell lighting our chalice today. And now we can do the words together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please join me in reading our covenant as we light our chalice. It's found in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and serve its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another.
All right, a couple weeks from now, in that very moment, you would have just heard me start either singing or playing this drum or something like that. But you'll notice, for those of you who are glued to your orders of service, there's a thing in here called the opening song, which is different from an opening hymn in that it is not in the hymnal and everything like that. I would like to do more singing a cappella, more teaching by rote, things of that nature here, because everyone can sing. Yes, you. I know you're like, oh, no, I'm tone deaf. No, you're not. Don't make me pull out some peer-reviewed things about how congenital amusia is a very, very rare condition. Everyone can sing, and I really want to get us singing first thing in the morning, which is why this opening song is here. For those of you who know it, this one is Never Turning Back. It's an old protest march song. So please rise in body or spirit, and I will sing our first line, and we're just going to learn it by rote. So as you catch on, start singing with me. We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Yeah, clap with me. We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on singing proudly. Keep on singing proudly. Keep on singing proudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Loving boldly, we're gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Moving forward, we're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Thank you. You may be seated.
And to call us into worship, I enter this sacred space to voice the longings of my heart in prayer. In sacred company, I offer up my love. I devote myself this morning in psalm and song, study and prayer. May my heart be lifted, may my thoughts be deepened, and may my soul like the eagle soar. Come, my friends, let us worship together.
Now, our centering hymn for today is number 131 in the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us. Again, that is 131 in the gray hymnal. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from creed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from creed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
It's that time when the young people are welcome to come forward for our time for all ages, if you would like to. I have a question for you guys today. I wonder, what is one word? Does anybody have one word that comes to mind when you think of politics? Like something associated with it, or something that it makes you feel to hear that word? Would you like to share a word?
Lawyers.
Lawyers. Lawyers think about politics. I agree with that. Is your word chicken nugget? Okay. What other words have to do with politics? Rules? Sure. Politics has to do with how we decide the rules, right? How we decide things all together. That's what it makes me think of, is decisions that we make together for our country. And when at this season, we've got an election coming up, right? A word could have been election, maybe, or voting. And during these seasons, when we've got an election coming up kind of soon, we sometimes think about politics and we just think about like, oh, what side are you going to vote for, right? Yesterday, I heard a commercial on the radio, and it was somebody calling up, and he was like, I want to know what side you support. And the commercial said, oh, well, we support the right and the left and the front and the back. We're a mattress store, so we sell you mattresses to support all the sides of your body. So maybe you'll hear that on the radio now that I've mentioned it. But yeah, sometimes we think about like just, oh, there's like a couple of sides and I gotta pick one to vote for. But actually politics is much, much more than that, right? It's all the decisions that we make in our communities, in our city, in our state, in our country. I would like to get a trash can there on my corner, and I'm hoping that my alderman will help me out with that. That's politics, right? I might need to get some signatures from the other people who want the trash can. So I have two stories that I want to tell you about, two people that I want to tell you about today who had a specific change that they cared about for themselves, and their perspectives were really important. It was really important that this person and this group that I'm going to tell you about made their voices heard, and it benefited their whole community. The first person is Claudette Colvin. Now, Claudette was 15 in the 1950s in Montgomery, Alabama, and she was a mentee of someone named Rosa Parks. Have you heard of Rosa Parks? What do you know about Rosa Parks?
She stood up to a white person who was asking her to leave her seat for him, and she didn't, and got arrested, but it led to a movement where segregation was, I forgot the word, gotten rid of, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Rosa Parks really helped our country a lot in getting rid of segregated institutions like the buses and the schools and everything like that. So we know the story of Rosa staying in her seat in that Montgomery bus in the 1950s, but 9 months before that, Claudette did the exact same thing, and she was only 15. She was too young to even vote, but she was sitting on the bus that day. She had paid her fare. She had gotten on. She was sitting where she was supposed to sit in the section that she was allowed to sit in. The front part got crowded, and so they wanted more space for the white folks to sit. So they came and asked Claudette, would you move back? And she said, you know what? I won't. I paid my fare. I'm going to sit in my seat. And in fact, she was next to a pregnant person that day who also was being asked to move and who also didn't want to move because it's actually nicer to sit down sometimes when you're pregnant. So Claudette said to the person, no, I'm going to stay here. And she actually got arrested. And 3 years ago, we actually acknowledged and expunged her record. And a judge said, you know what, that never should have been illegal. Claudette should have been allowed to sit in that seat that she paid for, and we can, after 70 years, at least now we can recognize that she did the right thing, right? So that was the first person I wanted to tell you about. That was from a long time ago. The next one that I wanted to tell you about is from this very year. There was a group of old ladies in Switzerland. Now, folks who are young are one group whose voices oftentimes get overlooked because you don't get a vote in our politics until you're 18, right? So it can be easy to think that you don't have a voice, but you do, like Claudette. And older folks, elderly folks, and as you get older in life, that's another group whose voices are sometimes overlooked. Not everybody always thinks about their needs and what we need as we get older, right? And so there was a group of older ladies in Switzerland, maybe some of them were grandmothers. They came together, and what they did was they went to a human rights court, which is a place that you can go if your country is not paying attention to something important that you need. They went to a human rights court, and they said, we actually have a right to not be endangered by the temperatures that we're experiencing. It is getting too hot for us older ladies. There are health risks due to this climate change that we're experiencing and these heat waves that we're experiencing. And our government is not doing what it needs to do to take care of our needs. They went to the Human Rights Court, and the Human Rights Court agreed with them. And Switzerland and maybe other countries will have to step up what they're doing to reduce climate change, to protect the environment and make it safe for those old ladies to go about their business and to exist and not be endangered by the air and the temperature around them, right? And in both of these cases, by those people speaking up for their own needs, Claudette wanted her seat. The grandmothers had their own specific reasons why they needed a certain temperature. There's health risks that are specific to being older, but it also affects the very young, and it also affects everybody. Nobody likes the heat waves. So by adding their perspective, they actually made things better for everybody. So what is the perspective that we each bring that we actually have perhaps a responsibility to speak up about that actually might benefit the whole world and everyone around us? I'll leave you with that, and we will send our children to their classes with our love.
I invite you to rise up, say a word of peace and welcome to your neighbor, catch up with someone you haven't seen, but don't do it for more than 45 seconds. Don't get out of control. people often ask me, why do you play Benny and the Jets? There's a deep spiritual explanation, but I think Adam has a songwriting credit and gets a small royalty each week when I don't know. But it's fun. Thank you.
I actually don't know if it's covered on CCS. That's why I never sing any of the words.
Each week we gather, we share with one another our joys as well as our sorrows. Anita had a wonderful suggestion some time ago. We, for a while, had the book working up here, and the book wasn't catching. It wasn't a joy and sorrow catcher as much. In the coming year, by which I mean after September 8th, which is our in-gathering, make a plan to be here on September 8th, you're going to have cards that you can put in the offering basket. We're going to tick the stuff around, so you have a minute when you come in, you get a card, and you can write something down, and then just send them forward, so we make sure there's a way of voicing those things. So stay tuned. Continuous improvement. Today, we make space for the good things and the hard things happening in our lives and in the lives of our community. If you have a word you'd like to share, I'm going to walk the pews as we breathe, and you just put your finger in the air, your hand, and I'll stop with you. And if you say your name so we get to know each other this way, and tell us what's lifting you up, or what's a challenge today, or what's something in the world you want us to hold in our hearts. Offer up our prayers.
I'm Joan Peterson, and we don't know how many anniversaries of what sort we are going to be able to enjoy before Betty leaves this plane. So we really enjoyed the 35th anniversary this past Thursday of my moving in with her and our becoming a couple.
Congratulations. Yes, more to come. What is the 35th anniversary? Is that the...
When I moved back from...
No, I mean, we celebrate that with cobalt or something? That's something special. It's something special. Prayers with Betty, and then celebration. My wife wants to say something. I think. Oh, no, Asar wants. Thank you, Jennifer. A word from Asar.
I rarely talk. Just kind of sit back here and do my thing. But as we do move into the election season, I do want everybody to recall what type of year we've had, especially outside of our own country, to help you make that decision. I know that a lot of the times we tend to be wrapped up in America and what America does, but it's important to remember what our president then does to the rest of the world. That's all.
That's it. Thank you, Asar.
I have a joy that I was tested. It's been over 10 days now for COVID, and I was tested with the nasal swab, and I just wanted to share with you all that test covered 22 viruses that are circulating in Chicago. 6 of them were COVID, and then I believe influenza, and I don't remember what all else. And I guess the kind of joy and to avoid sorrow is that we can all remember when we were supposed to go and get our what do you call it, our booster shots. And the kind of joy is that I've heard of so many people with COVID, and it doesn't seem to be affecting us as much. But I think we still need to be mindful of it.
It's good counsel. Take care of your health, because your health is our health, right? That was one of the things we learned there, is the way that we're all connected in sickness and in health. So let us hold in prayer all of those who wrestle with illness today, including those wrestling with long COVID. Let us put up a prayer of celebration for those who have passed through phases of physical challenge who have recovered quickly. We have a few people who have recovered quickly after the news of being sick. Let's pray for all the people who are working with chronic illness. There are so many in our congregation who have daily challenges and efforts to take care of their health and to regain strength and continue to live a fulfilling life. May we offer each other a hand in addition to a prayer. May we take action in addition to the movements of our hearts. May be so, and amen.
Lectern, Asar.
Hello. Okay. We will now collect the offering for the work of this congregation. What is given in love is received with much, much gratitude. May this church be worthy of your gift.
Today's text for reflection is from the great Langston Hughes. This is democracy. Democracy will not come today, this year, nor ever through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, let things take their course, tomorrow is another day. I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed, planted in a great need. I live here too. I want freedom just as you. Let us take a generous minute silent prayer and reflection and meditation in this space of grace. Amen.
I want to give a brief introduction to this one because every once in a while I do these very heavy songs. And the reason why I do them are not because I'm generally pessimistic. In fact, I felt a lot more optimistic just about our world in general in the last, compared to where I was maybe like a month or 2 months ago. But I think one of the really important things that we do in church, and especially the thing that I think about as a music minister, is sometimes it's good to grapple with negative, pessimistic, and cynical emotions in a constructive way and in a supportive place. And so that's a bit of what this song is today. And then I believe Dave will be at least slightly more optimistic than I will. Leave the bright blue door on the whitewashed wall. Leave the death ledger under City Hall. Leave the joyful air in that rubber ball today. Just leave the lilac print on the linen sheet. Leave the birds you killed at your father's feet. Let the sideways rain in the crooked street remain. Leave the whimpering dog in his cold kennel. Leave the dead starlet on her pedestal. Just leave the acid kids in their green fish bowls today. Leave the sad guitar in its hard-shell case. Leave the worried look on your lover's face. Let the orange embers in the fireplace remain. Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. Like a train off in the distance, bicycle chained to the stairs. Yeah, everything, it must belong somewhere. And I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Leave the ocean's roar in that turquoise shell. Leave the widower in his private hell. Leave the liberty in that broken bell today. Just leave the epic poem on its yellowed page. Leave the gray macaw in his covered cage. Let the traveling band on the interstate remain. Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. Soundstage in California, televisions in Times Square, yeah. Everything, it must belong somewhere. Yeah, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Yeah, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Leave the secret talks on the trundle bed. Leave the garden tools in that rusted shed. Just leave those bad ideas in your troubled head today. Just leave the restless ghost in his old hotel. Leave the homeless man out in that cardboard cell. Let the painted horse somewhere, like the gold around a finger or the silver in his hair. Yeah, everything, it must belong somewhere. And I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Yeah, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. In truth, the forest hears each sound, each blade of grass as it lies down. The world requires no audience, no witnesses, no witnesses. Leave the old town drunk on his wooden stool. Leave the autumn leaves in their swimming pool. Leave the poor black child in his crumbling school today. Just leave the novelist in his daydream tomb. Leave the scientist in her Rubik's Cube. Let the true genius in the padded room remain. Just leave the horse's hair on the slanted bow. Leave the slot machines on the riverboat. Leave the cauliflower in the casserole today. Just leave the hot, bright trash in the shopping malls. Leave the hawks of war in the Capitol. Let the organs moan in the cathedral remain. 'Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. They locked the devil in the basement, threw God up into the air. 'Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. Yeah, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Yeah, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Yeah, you know it's true, why don't you leave me here?
Remember with me, in an election far, far away, a compelling image. Maybe you have it burned into your memory just as I do. It was of 11 podia, forming a flying arc on a platform lifted high in the air with Reagan-era Air Force One in the background. It offered up 3 hours of continuous thrills, an entire political party up for grabs. This majestic display was, strangely enough, locked at that time in my memory, both outrageous at the time and in the fullness of its maturation, strangely helpful in the current political era. This was the 2016 election. That was a turning point. I didn't know it was then. I was paying lightly attention to the 11 voices fighting to be the leader of the Republican Party at that time. As it turned out, that moment was a shift, a pivot, and did a lot to define what has happened in the past 8 years. Now, that debate annoyed me at that time, as perhaps it would have annoyed you, or did annoy you. A number of things popped about it, and these were the things I was tweeting at the time, snidely, as one does. These were the frantic need for everyone, all of these dwarves as they were called, the frantic need for all of them to command the airtime, be more confident than the person next to them, talk over the person next to them, tear down the person across from them that they might appear larger, find every opportunity to take a new, ever more extreme position on a new, ever more absurd policy area, and to set everything up, most of all, to set everything up as us versus them, us versus anybody. Kind of this oppositional, hostile dialectic. In that little microcosm of our larger society, we saw the use of words and ideas not as a currency of exchange, as we might hope, but as mere tools for fortifications of positions, not as building tools, but as weapons of division. That's where my mind was at then. That's where my critique was 8 years ago. And I could hear myself clucking, shaking my head, and feeling self-righteous along with a good portion of the country. And yet through time, that debate started to reveal how really awesome it was, how functional it was. Firstly, in its capacity to provoke. It provoked me in ways that mattered then and mattered now. It made me want to argue, and it made me want to get into the campaign season. It was energizing me, luring me out of my usual Netflix sedation and into the public square. We have witnessed, in my lifetime, a retreat from the public square, a retreat of the churches from the public square, a retreat of us as individuals from those public forums. We need to be there because there's a lot at stake and a lot of work left to do. Often I've noticed in our churches we claim that we want our politicians to discuss issues in more reasonable and cerebral ways instead of offering a performance seemingly targeted to our lower natures. Strangely enough, I want to pause here and ask the question, do we really want that? Do we really want more cerebral politicians? What the folks, the noisiest, the most outrageous, and the most out there folks in the public square are doing is drawing their positions in sharp relief so we might have before us bright ideologies to cut through the darkness of indifference, the darkness of malaise, and the darkness of powerlessness. What we see in political spaces, let us not confuse it for what we see in church spaces, what we see at our dinner table. They are not of the same animal. They are caricatures. And when we look at caricature, meant to exaggerate in absurdity in order to clearly grasp and identify truths, we rely on those caricatures in order to navigate distant public spaces. There is a wisdom, not necessarily always of the outrageous voice speaking from the fringe, speaking from podium number 10, but of the combined effect of those 11 voices somehow steering the future. And I come back to this today because I would not have predicted what happened in our country in these past 8 years. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see 2016 coming. I went to bed with a different expectation of what was happening after I went to sleep. And in a sense, I kind of felt like it happened in the hour or two I wasn't watching. I don't know if anyone else had that election experience. It's because I closed my eyes and I went to bed and I was like, wait, you did what? That's not what I left you with. And I was surprised, but it wasn't about those 2 hours, of course it wasn't. It was about the 2 years before and the 20 years before. And so now, how odd is it to get up in a Unitarian pulpit before the DNC in Chicago, Illinois, and have this kind of soft focus lament for the bygone days of the 2016 Republican debate? Oh my gosh. Why should I miss that? I'll give a few reasons. It was, at its least, multivocal, many-voiced. In the scramble and the chaos of the many voices, there was a living system trying to discern how we will go. And in my mind, the objective of such a system is not to kill off 10, preserve 1, and never do it again. The objective of such a system is to have a public square that invites more voices, has more soapboxes. And yes, some of those voices, the people who choose to stand on soapboxes quite literally, usually have a rather extreme and surprising thing to say. And I don't mean to suggest that in setting out more soapboxes, we'll find the one person who has the secret for transforming society. That is not how it works. Somehow, through a multivocal dialogical process, a conversation among the many, there is a wisdom of the crowd and a capacity to generate a path forward that is a product of the many and could not have been prescribed by the one. And yet, in the years that followed 2016, there has been this ever winnowing down, as if there are only 2 people in the world, 2 perspectives in the world, 2 paths to go, 1 split. We know that's not how life is. If it was merely choosing the high road or the low road, the left road or the right road, how simple life would be. That's not what it is. It's navigating a forest without a path in it. And in order to successfully navigate the forest, navigate the woods, climb the mountain, it's going to take a climbing team of some complexity and some different talents. And so I celebrate, in a politically neutral way, the moment where we said in the Democratic Party, there are other people who can do this job. And I don't mean just one other person. I mean there are 20 other people who could do that job. I'll go so far as to say I know 5 people in this room who would do that job well. Do you believe it? I do. You might be one of them, and that's important. For us, here on the threshold of the DNC, I want us to think that engaging and going deeper is a spiritual practice, is a virtue, especially in a world of stark cultural divides. Sometimes it feels like the world is more culturally divided than ever. Oh, we've never been this divided. We know that's false. Not many of us were there 1858, the Civil War. Not many of us. Some of us were there 1968, the Democratic Convention. How many stops in between, in the 100 years I just bookended, could we say that America was more shockingly divided than we could even imagine? So we're not more divided than ever. And it helps us, I think, to recover some of the capacities of the past in times of division, of how people found a way not to necessarily unify the country. The moments of unification of the country, if we look back, tend to be war, some of the things that were not necessarily things we desirably seek. I don't know that we need 100% national unity. What we need are more voices in a more effective, pluralistic society. We're talking about our new values we just did. One of them that I think is so powerfully important is this idea of how we function in pluralistic space. That means moving from majoritarian thinking, and I tell you, this 2-party system is totally majoritarian thinking. We're nicking 0.5 percentage point to tilt the whole country, and it makes it seem like we're all on this edge. That's not the case. We're in 100 different places together. We have more beautiful complexity than our political system reflects or encourages. And that's one of the powerful gifts of this place. I think it's a theological gift. I do not believe that there are those moments in the Bible where it says, oh, you separate the goats from the sheep. There are 2 kinds. There's this and there's that. No, we are manifold. We are complex. We are beautifully complicated as a community. So how do you show some of that, to use a buzzword, right? How do you show some of that granularity in our community? This is what we try and do in church, not the one idea versus the other idea. setting up oppositional and dysfunctional systems, but the many ideas through some process of synthesis that come to something more than the sum of its parts. That's what American politics struggles with. And so we do a service when we attend to the many voices. We do a service when we step up and we use our voice to be one of the many. Our project is not to become the same voice. Our project is not to become the same person. The project in this church, when we say we're a non-creedal religion, we don't mean we're working on it and don't worry, we'll eventually have a creed once we engineer it well. And there's something baffling about that, because you mean if you were to find the truth, you wouldn't write it down and etch it on that wall? It's a declaration about the ontological state of not knowing, the ontological state of continuously, the state of being, I mean, continuously being on the edge of uncertain things. Not saying, oh, I can see the whole map now. We got the map. We know how to get up the mountain. We're saying it's uncharted territory ahead of us. And in my accounting, I'm a theist, it is uncharted territory in the heart and mind of God. That's the kind of the radical thing. Some of our history here at process theology. What if God isn't the one with the map shaking their head at us? But what if God is discovering the edge of mystery with us? What if God is the co-creative force of coming into knowing of that which can't be known until you move forward in time? How humbling that is. What if even God knows? We say God knows. God doesn't know. We're co-creating together. Do we know the path we have to go? No, but we have instincts, yearnings, leanings, experience, and ideas that might tell us which direction we should be leaning, what we should be turning into. So, I want us to feel inspired to enter the fray. I'm preaching, as I always do, mostly to myself, because I became a little dispirited, politically speaking, in these past 8 years. From that morning of waking up in 2016, it was 2016, right? Lost time. In 2016, and feeling like the world had shifted without my permission into a place where my understanding was not useful any longer, I slowly withdrew from that space. And then again and again, the world became a place where you have one alternative, terrible things, conflagration, apocalypse, or the other thing. Which do you prefer? Well, the other thing. I'm trying to say the other thing is not enough anymore. Yes, I want us to avoid conflagration, war, apocalypse, oppression, and a number of things that it's very easy to paint one side as representing terrible things, and then not thinking, more importantly, about the good things that we stand for, that we're going to advance, and that the people that we put forward to represent us and act as agents of our behalf are going to pursue. It's not enough to be against things. It is a secret to life, I believe, a secret to a fulfilling and good life, to decide to be for things. And so we are called to ask, what are we for? For whom are we? Who counts? And then how will we act in political spaces, both the big ones to go vote. Please, please, please go vote. We'll drive you there. We'll drive you there and buy you a hot dog after. Who's on the team with me to drive people to the polls and buy them Chicago dogs? It's going to be a big day, right? So go vote. But I'm talking about the way that we choose to occupy political spaces, and all of the public spaces are political spaces, to bring a voice. And not necessarily the one voice. Oh my gosh, I lived in Georgia. Georgia's an interesting place. Anyway, yard signs. It's just 2 yard signs that you could possibly have. One gets your house egged. I'll tell you that. I'll leave that there. But that's not the kind of voice I'm talking about. We are brilliantly complex, and in the settings we are in, have the opportunity to articulate different visions for the world. And I want us not also to become one single block. Use your voice. There is difference in this room. And the difference is not the thing we're trying to overcome any more than we're trying to get to that creed. That wasn't the point of it. because we don't think that's the answer. If it was one of even 11 answers, then we would figure out which one it was. It's a puzzle room. This ain't a puzzle room. This is the edge of the unknown, and it's going to require each of us using our resources, using the internal compass we have been given and we have cultivated from life experience, hard-earned. You earn that compass. Each one of us is going to have to box the compass and have a voice in the navigation of our future. I say that for this country, and I say that for this church. This year and next are going to be big years to figure out, where are we taking the ship? Where will we go? And it's not one thing, and it's not going to rely on one voice. It's not going to rely even on 5 voices, although we had some beautiful voices here today. It's why we practice multivocal discernment together. We are a discerning people, and what I want us to do is not only be a squawking voice out in the world, go ahead, do squawk. I want us to teach people a way of making space that is not monovocal, that is not monotone, that is not singular and suffocating to all of the other possibilities surrounding us. That's countercultural in this day and age. I want to pivot a little bit and say we have to understand something again about those political spaces. It's not a win or lose situation, although on days I think the good wins and on other days the good does not. I see it more clearly in hindsight, like most of us. I want to offer the encouraging word of hope. You'll see this is a schismatic thing. Like, what's the situation? What's the problem? What's the hope? I hope you've heard that part of the hope is the power that you have. Part of the hope is a vision for a world which has more people guiding us forward than this reductionist vision of a bipolar, binary world. Overcoming that simplistic and totalizing and suffocating binary, and binaries of all kinds, is part of what we do. The other hope is to realize that we may lose today on any given good that we see, that we can taste, that we know deep in our hearts. We may lose today, but we're part of a larger story. And most of the meaningful change, this was an aha to me. I had this idea, I'm going to be here and we're going to be a part of making every meaningful change. Meaningful change happens because we do it, and we change hearts and minds, and we change ourselves. It's true in a way. But let me get back there with that notion of the God's eye view. If you zoom back out, maybe it's a space station view. Get some of my non-theists here. You take the space station view and look at it over time. We change not so much as people. I'm a lot like I was when I was 16. You can ask my wife. Not that much change, 40 years. But generationally, we're a whole different thing. One of the great blessings of this job, and one of the great blessings of being in a church, we did board retreat yesterday, and we were talking about it. We said, what matters in church? What has changed your life? What matters in our ministries? And people said again and again, what matters in our ministries is I get to sit in church with someone who is different than me, be their friend, hear their voice, and have a perspective on the world that I otherwise didn't have. And the number one thing that comes up in this church particularly is multi-generationalism. I think Liz said that there, is that to sit and you have people, we have people in 5 generations, when we talk about these generational cohorts, sitting in this room right now. And so the power and joys and sorrows to hear the voice and what prayers people are putting up for the political season, let that be an inspiration, especially when someone lifts it up in a way that isn't your way. Because the biggest changes in our world have changed between generations. We wouldn't have believed the world today. We wouldn't have believed the world of what the world is for 30-year-olds today or 20-year-olds today. I want to lift up same-sex marriage because that's been one of the most radical changes in my lifetime. And it was one of the most studied sort of wedge issues in politics. If you go back 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, remarkably, it was the wedge used to separate people and to argue, and that we were never going to win. And this was so I want to just look and to say, back in the day, I was down in Georgia, a more conservative state. I use it as an example. Illinois is more progressive. Georgia's more conservative. There, they passed a constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. 75% of the people said they were against it. before the federal law for marriage equality was passed, that had gone from only 24% of people saying it's a crime. And it was illegal for me to marry, criminally illegal for me to marry people of the same sex. In Georgia when I was there. I'm not talking about 1942. I'm talking about whenever the heck that was, 2014. So it changed, and not only did the federal law change, but by the time the federal law got there, the majority position had become in favor of same-sex unions. How did it happen? Some of it was a Barack Obama phenomenon. He came in 2012 against same-sex marriage. Do we remember that? Saint Barack. I love him. He's my guy. Forgive me. He's not running, so I can say that from the thing. But he was my guy. I felt like he was my president. So I have to remember 2012, which was just 12 years ago, he was coming in opposition to something I consider now a basic fundamental human right. By 2016, that was 2008, in 2012, he had changed his position and talked about his change of heart. How did his heart change? People in his life of a different generation engaging him in dialogue, and his heart moved. And not for nothing, the people who were 16 then, do my math, are 30 now. And the discourse around gender, sexuality, identity has changed so dramatically. And it still is so different. Sit with 80-year-olds, sit with 20-year-olds, and have the same conversation about those matters, and we're in different worlds. That's not bad news, that's good news. The world is changing in generational ways. And that which was unthinkable, in terms particularly, let us touch now on civil rights. In terms of civil rights, that which was unthinkable 20 years past is the absolute moral norm today. And that's because of generational transformation. So the opportunity here in a political season is not only to ensure that we have multivocal spaces, but ensure that we have a kind of generational inclusivity and generational deference. It's not that the young are right about everything. It's that the young are inescapably the future and are more tied to the reality of the now than those of us who age through the system. And so we are transformed by the generations behind us as much as we are transformed by the experience and wisdoms of the generations before us. So I hope in this time that we are, again, conveners of conversations, and let us do it across all kinds of difference. But in this moment, let us think about the church as a multi-generational, radical community. Radical in its multi-generationalism in what it looks like. That we sit down and have dialogue, serious dialogue with people who are 13 years old. What does that look like? Some of you have 13-year-olds, so you know nothing other than serious dialogue with 13-year-olds because they won't let you have any other kind. But that's the invitation here. Let us be the people in this season, and this week is going to be crazy. One, embrace the craziness, because some of that chaos is the process by which we move forward. It's the process by which we move forward, and we won't know it until 20 years from now. I don't think we understood how the anti-war movement of the 1960s was going to have an effect until 2000. I don't think we understand how the revolutionary approaches to our common life are going to have an effect for another 20 years. But I can tell you the necessity of us putting ourselves in it and us using the power we have, and we have a lot of powerful people in the room, to hand microphones to people, to create some granularity of insight and opinion, and to bring the generations together in a way only we can. I hope this week, it's just one of the parties here this week having a conversation. I hope we find ways to be part of it. I hope we find ways to invite other people into conversations. And I hope we dislodge this bipolar world into something with a little gracious complexity. Be the complexity bringers. We're powerful enough to do that. May it be so, and amen.
Our closing hymn this morning is number 1028 in the Teal Hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. Again, that's 1028 in the Teal Hymnal. I invite invite you to stand in body or spirit for the singing.
You may remain standing. You can take a hand if you so wish for a closing word together. As you go forth from this place, may you have a blessing upon you. May you be blessed by a strong voice. May you be blessed by a creative mind. May you be blessed by people who want to hear what you have to say. And may you be blessed by a few who don't, but listen anyway. Go from this place, be brave, be true, and be loved. Amen.